Hello, I thought in this video I'd talk about my waterfall, how I went building it, so hopefully it will be helpful, informative to tell you how I went about building it, and maybe this video will be informative. So first of all, before you start building your waterfall, it's a good idea to source some stones and rocks. So where do you get them from? Well, you have to go to a local quarry. There's very different types of quarries as well. Some will give you sandstone looking like this, others will give you boulders like that. It just depends on what type of stone you want. It's always a good idea to compare quarries and decide whether you want the roundish, beach type pebble, large pebble boulder type of stones, or whether you want something more rustic. So I found a good source of getting hold of unique stones was to go onto the Facebook marketplace and get hold of free stone that you could pick up from any location in your local area, and just pick and choose what you need, and just choose something that you think will work. I, in particular, sourced this ironstone here from a place in Huddersfield, as well as the ironstone behind. I've got that piece of granite stone there from someone in Leeds. This top flagstone I got off someone in Huddersfield, and the sandstone massive piece of stone you see here, which I got from Johnson's quarry in Huddersfield. So as you can appreciate, you can get stones from various different places to create the look that you're looking to do. So what do you do when you start off doing a waterfall? What do you need to do? Right, first thing you need to do is build up a mound of soil and then compact it and then shape it a little bit. So as you can see, we've got the main waterfall here and two little waterfalls there. So I basically shaped the soil so these stones would fit into that area. So then, after you've shaped the soil, you need to put some underlay down. So once you've shaped the soil, you put down some underlay material. That is to protect the liner when you put the liner down. Because what you do is you put a bit of liner that flows into the pond with about 6 to 12 inches overlapping. And you always put the liner that's flowing down into the pond on top of the liner that's in the pond. That way there's no water leak. So then you put your liner down, and then you carefully arrange your rocks. Before you do that, you need to make sure you've compacted the soil and it's not going to move over time and not sink as well. So once you've got your stones in, what you need to do is make sure you've levelled it as much as you can. So that way it needs to be as level as possible. Going down, you can have a slight unevenness in terms of the level, so it flows down. And then you just arrange your rocks to how you want it to look. The secret to doing a waterfall to make sure it doesn't leak is to design it in such a way that the liner is at every point going in to the pond. So what you don't want is any point where the liner is exposed that allows the water to flow off it in a certain way. Sometimes you can solve this problem by creating creases and gullies in the liner that forces it down into the pooling area or the pond itself. So that's the trick to creating a nice waterfall, is to make sure it funnels all your water into the pond. And then once you've done that, what you need to do is hide all the edges, and that's what we call edging. Now you can use many different types of material. I've used some mulch here, I've used gravel, stones, various types of different stones. What we've got is Scottish pebbles here, multicoloured pebbles, Cornwall gravel and pebbles, and also some larger sandstone cobbles that I got from the quarry, which is relatively cheap. Just remember that if you want to get cheap stone for a very small amount of money, you can get what you need from the quarry for a very cheap small amount. However, if you've got no money at all and you want to start building your pond, once you've got all the various components such as your skimmers, your waterfall box, like I've shown in a previous video, check that out. You know, essentially the final step is, once you've built your waterfall, is edging it all in, making it look nice, putting your plants around it, and that's what I've done. So I'm hoping this video has been quite informative how to build a waterfall like this. So let me just go through, and I know I've talked a lot in this video about how you go about building it, but I'll just summarise what you do. So what you start off doing is you put a mound of soil down, compact it, right? And then you carve it to how you want it to be. And then after that, you put your underlay down. Make sure there's no sharp stones. Put your EPDM liner on top. And then you put your stones on top of your liner. Now you can put some overlay or underlay on top of the liner as well, so no sharp edges on these stones will puncture the liner. That's always a good suggestion, especially if some of these stones are very heavy and there's only yourself moving stones. And then you arrange your stones in the way you want it to be. Make sure your liner's in how it should be. You know, rock it in, put your pebbles and your stones in, or you know, mulch it, put soil around, then put your plants in, and essentially turn your waterfall on. Obviously you've got to install your waterfall box, which is behind here. I'll take that off so you can see. You take your waterfall, install your waterfall box, you know, and what you can do is hide it around rocks like that to disguise it. This is only a cheap superfish one, which you can pick up for £25 to £30. Aquascape do a 1000 bioforce one, which is a much larger version, but the price is significantly more expensive. It's roughly about £400. And there are cheaper and smaller alternatives to the Aquascape. I think Aquascape do a smaller version, which is about £100, but you'd have to import that from America if you can find one, that is. But essentially, this is the waterfall setup I've got here. I just wanted to talk you through what I've done and how you build it. In terms of getting hold of various types of cobbles and pebbles and stones, just go to your local hardware store. Typically, in terms of the cost of all the pebbles and gravel, I spent about £80 getting hold of this gravel from a local hardware store, because I wanted to have multicoloured gravel and stones to match this building wall that's behind me. So essentially that's more or less how I've gone about building the waterfall. It's not cost me a lot of money to build a waterfall, it just took a long time. This took me about 2 days to build because I had to keep changing my mind, and that's essentially, it's an artistic project. You know, you'll constantly keep changing your mind how you want it to look. A recommendation is, once you put your stones down, step back towards where you may view it from the house and ask yourself, do I like that? Is that good enough? Could I have done it better? And if the answer's no, come back to it, remove things around, rejig it a little bit, and if it's good, leave it. You know, sometimes something simple is the best thing to do. So hopefully I think I've explained the waterfall and how you go about building it. Essentially, you can always modify it later on, you know, just remember that. You know, building a pond and a waterfall is not set in stone, you can always modify it. Why I personally believe rocking in a pond and using lots of gravel and pebbles is better than using bare liner, as you may see in, say, some of the construction ponds and koi ponds that you may see with using breeze blocks and concrete and cement is using bare liner is not a great way of dealing with the waste that comes from fish, because what you want is beneficial bacteria that's living off the rocks, living off the gravel, living off the stones. Even the waterfall will have beneficial bacteria living on it. As you can see, we've got some green algae there. That is eating the ammonia, the nitrates, nitrites that you may have if you've got fish in your pond. Now this pond isn't set up completely because I'm going to probably do a few changes to the plants, you know, rearrange them a little bit better, but then introduce some goldfish, and then this will be a fully fledged ecosystem, because as you can see we've got some grassy plants in the little pooling area here which will absorb any sort of ammonia, nitrites, nitrates, you know, and hopefully, you know, get rid of some of the harmful waste that comes from fish. I've got plants in the pond as well, and obviously inside of the box here we've got some biofoam ceramic media, which is considered one of the best stuff you can get that will house a lot of beneficial bacteria that will change ammonia, nitrites to nitrates, and then you've got some sponges in there as well that will also you know, have beneficial bacteria living in there and basically absorbing any sort of harmful waste from your fish. And then obviously all I have to do is clean that out maybe once a week, but a larger spillway you might not need to clean out as often, maybe once every couple of months, maybe even once a year, depending on how big your fish load is. What you can remember is the more fish you have in a pond, the more waste, the more filtration that's required. However, you've got to be careful about using koi fish, because the thing with koi fish is they like to eat you know, plants basically, so it's a good idea to try and protect your plants somehow so that koi fish can't get at them. Goldfish don't seem to be that interested in eating plants for some reason, and most fish when they're hungry will eat algae, but if you've got a lot of string algae you might want to think about treating your pond. So I just thought this video was informative about waterfalls, how I built this, where to get stone from, how to construct it, and I just hope these series of videos I've been doing on how I went building this pond will be helpful. So there's two types of ponds you can do in terms of the structure of the pond. One is you can build shelves, you know, into your pond where you can put your rocks on, and obviously if you've got a lot of room, yeah, that's great. However, if you're short on space, you might not be able to fit lots of shelves in your pond. In that case, you can raise your pond using stones, and then you can build artificial shelves using stones, and then put your plants on top of those stones. So that's something else you can think about in terms of the construction of the pond. But I just hope this video was informative about how I've built it. Maybe it can give you an idea on how you would want to build your pond. The key point to building your pond and your waterfall is have a mindset of how you want it to look before you start building it, and then you can aim towards that. You're not always going to be perfect. There will be times where it will be slightly different to what you actually wanted, but that's the nature of nature. Nature is random, it's different, and there's nothing wrong with having something a bit different to what you originally envisioned, as long as it looks nice and you're happy with it. Ultimately, if you're happy with your pond and it's fantastic and it sounds nice like this, you know, that's all you can ask for really. So ultimately this pond will be used for having goldfish, and it will be a good wildlife environment as well, so birds can come up to here and drink out the pool. I will have frogs going down to the top level of where the water is, and obviously maybe smaller animals and, you know, flies and butterflies and that sort of thing will be drawn to it as well. I've already noticed bumblebees have been going close to the pond as well. You know, going around, going towards the plants that I've got going around it. But in this video, I just wanted to talk about the pond and the waterfall. Check out the previous video about my pond and how I went about building that. But every pond is different. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good time building yours.